So Tyson Fury appears to be trying to fill himself with confidence ahead of this scheduled fight with Alexander Usyk on May 18th. At his strange press conference yesterday, he was reeling off a list of former cruiserweights who stepped up to heavyweight and fell short, at least against the elite big men. He mentioned people like David Haye and Thomas Adamek. And so we can look at this to see whether Tyson Fury is right and justified to take confidence from this claim that most cruiserweights who step up to heavyweight fall short. Well, firstly, we have to establish the fact that Alexander Usyk is not a normal cruiserweight. We're talking about the greatest cruiserweight of all time. The only person who could make an argument of it is Evander Holyfield, and we'll come on to him a little bit later on. Usyk is far more proven, not only at cruiserweight, but also at heavyweight than the likes of David Haye, Thomas Adamek, or even someone like Michael Moorer, who did become heavyweight champion. He didn't move up from cruiserweight, he moved up from light heavyweight. And he did beat Holyfield, of course, in their first fight, but Holyfield had moved up from cruiserweight, so some people would look at that and say, Michael Moorer never beat an elite big man. Now, if you go way back in time, prior to the existence of the cruiserweight division, you had light heavyweights stepping up to the heavyweight division. And of course, many of them did so unsuccessfully at world level. But there were a few who did find success, who did beat elite big men of their time. So Gene Tunney, for example, stepped up from light heavyweight to heavyweight and beat Jack Dempsey twice. Dempsey obviously was elite. And incidentally, Gene Tunney never lost a fight at heavyweight. You had Ezra Charles, who stepped up from light heavyweight to heavyweight and beat Joe Louis. Louis was obviously elite. You had Michael Spinks, who stepped up from light heavyweight to heavyweight and beat Larry Holmes twice. Holmes was obviously elite. Then when the cruiserweight division came about, Holyfield obviously stepped up, beat Buster Douglas, but a lot of people were skeptical about how good Douglas really was. Many people thought that his victory over Mike Tyson was a fluke. So despite the fact that he was a big man, a legitimate heavyweight, and he was still quite young when he fought Holyfield, many people were not convinced that he was elite. And so Holyfield went on to defend against the likes of George Foreman, Burt Cooper, and Larry Holmes during his first world title reign. And he didn't impress. There was a feeling at the time among many boxing pundits and members of the public that Holyfield was living on borrowed time. He struggled against the likes of Larry Holmes, to a lesser extent George Foreman, certainly struggled against Burt Cooper. And so many people felt that the first time he gets in there against a young, big heavyweight in their prime who has talent, he's probably going to lose. And they were right, because that did happen against Riddick Bowe. The first time they fought, Holyfield got soundly beaten. But of course, Holyfield got his revenge in their rematch, and he managed to secure that victory over a big elite heavyweight. He would later go on to beat Mike Tyson, gain revenge over Michael Moorer, and so on, but neither Moorer nor Mike Tyson were big heavyweights. Moorer actually, as I mentioned earlier, moved up from light heavyweight, and although Mike Tyson was a career heavyweight as a professional, again, not a big guy, but Holyfield did get that victory over, as I say, Riddick Bowe in the second fight, an elite big man in his prime. Beating George Foreman, yeah, that's a big man, but he wasn't classed as elite when Holyfield fought him, neither was Larry Holmes. Now, when you compare Alexander Usyk to Evander Holyfield, that box that Holyfield found so difficult to tick, beating an elite big man in their prime, Usyk has already ticked it. He beat Anthony Joshua twice, comfortably. So this category that Tyson Fury wants to put Usyk in, whereby he hasn't beaten an elite big man, he's clutching at straws with that. Now, of course, many people argue that Anthony Joshua is not elite. And it's a semantic argument, because it all comes down to how you define elite. People have got their own definitions. For me, it's basically the top, let's say 3 fighters or 4 fighters at a push in any division. That's what elite is to me. But to other people, no. They think that elite is only the number 1 guy in the division, or maybe the top 2. And even then, they basically have to both be Hall of Famers. So there are different definitions of elite. But if Tyson Fury wants to categorize himself as elite and not Anthony Joshua, that's a difficult argument to make at this stage, because he's just struggled with Francis Ngannou, a guy who'd never boxed before, in his last fight. And AJ demolished that same guy in 2 rounds. Prior to that, AJ fought another common opponent between himself and Tyson Fury, Otto Wallin. Wallin went the distance with Fury several years ago when Fury was a younger, fresher man. And AJ got rid of him in, 4 or 5 rounds? Anthony Joshua was a long reigning heavyweight champion, unified heavyweight champion. Beat the likes of Joseph Parker, defended against people like Kubrat Pulev, Alexander Povetkin, Vladimir Klitschko, of course, Carlos Takam, beat Joseph Parker in a unification, had that blip against Ruiz, of course, but came back and got revenge over him, took Dominic Brazil's unbeaten record at the time, beat Eric Molina. Now, not all of these guys were great fighters, but you compare it to Deontay Wilder's title run, AJ fought the better opposition, hands down, or at least beat the better opposition, because of course, Deontay Wilder did fight Tyson Fury, but he lost to Fury and he had a draw with him. So Anthony Joshua had much better wins on his record than Deontay Wilder ever did. And so if Wilder was classed as an elite heavyweight for a while, you look at it objectively, fairly, then you'd have to say Anthony Joshua would qualify as elite as well. AJ's actually got more world title fights under his belt than Tyson Fury does. Who's Tyson Fury beat that's head and shoulders above the guys that Anthony Joshua's beat? They've both beat Klitschko. They've both beat Dillian Whyte. They both beat Francis Ngannou, who is no great shakes as a boxer anyway. Fury beat Wilder and has been eating off those Wilder wins for years, milking them, trying to make out as though they were some of the greatest wins in heavyweight history or something. But then, of course, Anthony Joshua beat Joseph Parker, who recently comfortably defeated Deontay Wilder. So I don't see this massive gap between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury in terms of what they've achieved at all in Tyson Fury's favor. It's not there. Styles make fights. If they get in the ring, perhaps Fury wins. But we've seen now that there are certain fighters who Anthony Joshua deals with more comfortably than Tyson Fury does. That's indisputable now. It's happened. And of course, there are some fighters that Tyson Fury deals with better than Anthony Joshua. It remains to be seen whether Usyk will be one of them. And while Fury's putting himself in the category of elite, is he right to do so at his age? How fresh is Tyson Fury at this point? Is he the same guy that he was 2-3 years ago? Now, he's actually a year or two younger than Alexander Usyk, but Usyk is well preserved. Unlike Tyson Fury, he hasn't abused his body. He's stayed in shape his whole life. And with that tends to come longevity. Tyson Fury is searching for confidence, thinking about all these cruiserweights who stepped up and didn't make it. I guess he forgot about the light heavyweights and the cruiserweights who stepped up and did make it and did beat elite big men. Alexander Usyk happens to be one of them. He's already ticked that box. What he's going for now is to see whether he can beat 2 elite big men. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Leave yours in the comment section below. And before I go, I want to give a shout out to all the new subscribers to my Patreon page. I cover loads of different topics in my weekly podcast, as you can see on screen right now, from current events to deep dives down the rabbit hole and everything in between. I'm really enjoying the feedback and the discussions we've been having on there lately. So if you'd like to join the conversation, just click the link in the description box below. Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast, where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.